My name is Aurelia Westbrook. I'm 36 years old. The federal government technically owns everything inside my head, at least the part that invented my $2.5 million dome. On paper, I'm a microbiologist specializing in industrial microorganisms. In reality, I spent the last 3 years turning an abandoned shipyard in Seattle into a glittering glass bubble full of invisible things that could ruin my life if they ever misbehave. From the outside, my dome looks like a trendy eco-pavilion, curved glass, ferns and planters, perfect for smug urban photo shoots about green cities of the future. People jog by, snap pictures, and guess whether it's a cafe or a pop-up art space. Inside, it's BSL, 2, airlocks, negative pressure, filters, sensors, and cultures that quietly digest industrial emissions molecule by molecule. The land and building belong to my little LLC, Westbrook Environmental Systems. But every strain, every piece of equipment, every byte of data belongs to the Department of Energy and the EPA. It's my dome, but their property. And that split, as it turned out, was the fuse. My parents live 3 hours away in a suburb outside Portland, in a beige 2-story house with a maple tree out front and a plastic welcome sign that's older than I am. Mom works the front desk at a dental clinic. Dad does inventory for a regional hardware chain, and between them they have exactly zero interest in the difference between a petri dish and a dinner plate. To them, my entire career is summed up in one phrase Mom loves to repeat. Our girl works in that glass cafe with Moss. The first time they drove up to Seattle to see the dome, Dad stood in the parking lot with his hands on his hips, squinting at the curved glass. Looks like a Starbucks for plants, he announced. You should put in a pastry case. Make some money on the side. I tried, patiently, to explain. It's a BSL 2 facility, Dad. Biosafety level 2. Industrial microorganisms. You can't just invite people in for muffins. He nodded in that vague way he reserves for things like computer updates. Sure. Very high-tech. My brother Ethan, on the other hand, understood exactly one thing the moment he saw the dome. It would look incredible on camera. Ethan is in the event business, which in his case means he lives on his phone and calls it creative direction. Product launches, immersive pop-ups, influencer brunches. If it can be branded and photographed, he's done it or wants to. So of course, the second he stepped inside the airlock and saw the light pouring through the glass, he spun around with this manic sparkle in his eyes. Ria, this is insane, he said. Do you have any idea how perfect this would be for a wedding? Like an ultra-eco wedding under glass? People would lose their minds. I thought he was joking. Ethan, this is a federal lab. Don't forget about it. But he barreled on. Picture it. Plants everywhere, candles, live band in that corner, bar over there. We lean into the green future thing. Alara and I have been talking about doing something that feels meaningful, not just another barn with fairy lights. This is it. And you'd get so much publicity for your science. Articles, reels, maybe brand partnerships. No, I snapped. He blinked. You didn't even let me finish the pitch. Because there is no pitch, I interrupted. This is a BSL 2 research facility funded by the Department of Energy and the EPA. We deal with engineered microorganisms and industrial emissions. There are federal regulations, biosafety protocols, signed access logs. I can't just host your ultra-eco wedding next to an experimental bioreactor. He rolled his eyes. You make everything sound like a crime scene. It would be, I snapped again. Unauthorized events in a secure lab? If anything goes wrong, it's not just a slap on the wrist. It's criminal liability. For me. There was a pause. Then he lifted his hands in surrender. Okay, chill. I get it. Science jail, bad. No weddings. My parents chimed in with that soothing, fake reasonable tone. Of course, honey, Mom said. We respect your boundaries. If it's dangerous, it's dangerous. Dad added, we don't want you going to prison over a cake cutting. On the drive back to Portland, though, Mom texted a photo she'd taken through the glass, one of my moss panels, backlit so it glowed soft green. Our daughter's sterile cafe, she wrote. So pretty. You could serve tea there. And after that, the jokes never really stopped. Anytime we were on a call and I mentioned a new strain, Ethan would say, "How's the fly agaric business? Brewing any fun spores for the hipsters?" They said it all with affection, like it was harmless teasing. I laughed sometimes because it was easier than explaining again what BSL-2 meant, what federal oversight actually looked like, how heavy the keys in my pocket felt every night when I locked the dome. But I didn't even realize that behind all the jokes, Ethan was quietly filing my dome under unique venue, like a Pinterest board he intended to use. Ethan announced his wedding date the way he announces everything important, with a group video call and way too much enthusiasm. I was still in my lab coat, propping my phone against a mug in the tiny break room, when his face filled the screen. Ilara was tucked under his arm, glowing and polished, my parents squeezed together at their kitchen table in Portland. "Okay, everyone ready?" Ethan said. Drum roll. "We have a date. End of October. The 29th. Mom clapped like someone had just won a game show. "Perfect. Fall colors, pumpkins, all the pretty things." Dad said, "About time, son," while sipping from his chipped #1grandpa mug, even though he has no grandchildren. Ethan shared his screen and started flipping through glossy PDFs, barns with chandeliers, vineyards with views, a white industrial loft in downtown Portland. "We're thinking something like this," he said, zooming in on a photo of a barn ringed with string lights. "Classic, but we can make it our own." Ilara nodded. "My followers love anything with wood beams and greenery. It feels so authentic." "You'll pick whatever works best," Mom said, eyes shining. "We just want you happy." I watched it all from my corner of the screen, breathing a little easier with every slideshow click that didn't include my dome. Wineries, hotels, historic houses, each one was another confirmation that they'd let go of the idea. By the time Ethan said, "So block off the 29th, Rhea, non-negotiable," I was already writing it into my planner. "Wouldn't miss it," I said. And I meant it. That was the scene everyone remembers. The end of October date, the catalogs, the perfectly normal options. That's the version my parents will still swear by. But what I didn't see was the other version Ethan was building at the same time. 2 weeks earlier than the family date, he quietly set the actual wedding day with his vendors. Same guest list, same caterer, same band. Except, different location. And right on cue came the concern. "You work too much," Mom said one evening, calling as I was entering data. "You're always at that dome. It's not normal." Before I could argue, she rolled on. "We've been talking, and your brother found this wonderful thing. An international science retreat in Colorado. 3 days in the mountains. Yoga, nature walks, master classes in science communication. For women in STEM, just like you." I laughed, thrown by the phrase. "International? In Colorado?" "You know what I mean," she said. "People from all over. A program just for women scientists. You never do anything for yourself, Aurelia. Let us give you this." Then Ethan jumped in on speaker, smooth and confident. "It's legit, Rhea. I talked to the organizer. Panels, networking, burnout prevention. Totally your vibe. And Mom and Dad are covering your flights as an early birthday present." Something in me relaxed. I'd been carrying the dome like a weight in my chest for months. The idea of someone else arranging everything, of just showing up to a cabin with yoga mats and other tired women with PhDs, felt like stepping into a warm bath. "Are you sure?" I asked. "That's a lot of money." "We want to," Mom insisted. "You save the planet. We can at least send you to the mountains." The confirmation email arrived the next day. I didn't examine the payment details. I didn't notice the billing address listed as my company. I just clicked accept, exported the dates to my calendar, and went back to my cultures. Only later, after lawyers and audits and a sickening meeting with a federal investigator, did I see the transaction laid out in black and white. The retreat fee and flights had not been paid from my parents' account. They'd been routed through my company's business card, authorized by a neat little digital signature that looked like my name. Ethan had used my login once, months before, just to help with an invoice. Apparently, he'd kept enough of my credentials to fake the approval. I wasn't there that Friday evening. I was in Colorado, pretending to relax in a circle of women in leggings, talking about work-life balance. At 6:42 p.m., my technicians badge out for the night. One by one, their names disappear from the access log. The last one out checks the main door twice and locks the outer gate. The dome goes quiet except for the usual machine hum and the distant clank of the shipyard. At 7:13 p.m., a white van pulls up to the gate. On the side, in neat blue letters, it says, City Fire Inspection. Official enough to look boring. Boring enough that no one on the jogging path even pauses. Ethan gets out of the passenger seat, wearing a branded windbreaker and carrying a clipboard. Beside him is a man I recognize from the older security photos in our vendor files, Greg, a guard who worked a short-term contract for us during initial construction. I hadn't seen his name on a shift schedule in months. They walk up to the gate like they belong there. Greg punches in the external code I gave him once for emergencies, back when the alarm company was still sorting out bugs. The lock clicks open. No one challenges them. Why would they? On paper, this is just a fire safety check. Inside the entry vestibule, there's a camera above the door. Later, investigators zoomed in on the sheet of paper on Ethan's clipboard, a fake order for an unscheduled inspection of smoke removal systems, complete with the city logo lifted from a PDF and a made-up reference number. Greg shows it to the building's night supervisor on the monitor, straight to the lens. Then he uses his old badge and an emergency override code that was never properly deactivated. One by one, interior doors accept him. On the security panel, he puts the system into service mode. That quiet little phrase that means, we expect alarms. Don't call it in. He disables several cameras for testing, creating blind spots in the main dome where the lab sections open into the public-looking space. Enough eyes left working to seem legitimate, enough turned off to give Ethan room. Then they start stripping away the warnings. The bright yellow biohazard placards on the inner doors. The red and black authorized personnel, only signs I argued for in 3 separate emails. They peel them off, unscrew them, stack them like trash. On one grainy camera angle, I can see Ethan laughing as he carries an armful of signage down the corridor. They stash the warnings behind tall plastic chemical waste containers in a storage alcove nobody uses on weekends. When the last sign is gone, the dome stops looking like a lab and starts looking like what Ethan always wanted it to be, a beautiful, mysterious glass room. He steps back, takes out his phone, and begins to work. First click, the empty central platform where my main air intakes are housed. Second click, the long view down the corridor, glass curving overhead, city lights beyond. Third click, the plant wall glowing in the half-dark, stripped of hazard symbols. He doesn't ask permission, doesn't blur anything. He sends the photos straight to the wedding organizers with a message I only saw later in a subpoenaed chat log. This is our venue. Private Urban Eco Center. Gonna be iconic. I wasn't there that Saturday morning either, but I've seen every angle of it since. Security footage, photographers' reels, shaky TikToks from hungover bridesmaids. At 7:02 a.m., the first truck pulls up to the gate, wrapped in a floral logo, a decorator crew. 2 more arrive behind it, one with rental equipment, one plastered with the label of an organic beverage brand I'd only ever seen in sponsored posts. On their schedules and contracts, the location is a private urban eco center, Seattle waterfront. Greg buzzes them in. The vans roll right up to my dome. By 8, the place is crawling with people who have no idea where they're standing. The decorators move fast. They drape gauzy fabric over stainless steel railings, cover equipment carts with linen, and drag in crates of potted plants to hide anything that looks too technical. The clear central platform that houses my main air intakes becomes a stage. Black risers laid directly over the vents, cables snaked around metal grates. They set up a live band there, drum kit, amps, a neon sign spelling out Alara and Ethan. My crop lamps, calibrated for controlled growth cycles, are turned into a light show. Someone kills the default settings and plugs them into a cheap DMX controller. Now they strobe pink and blue in time with test tracks instead of nurturing cultures. Near the test bioreactor, a steel tank currently housing my most promising strain, they set up a bar. A literal bar. mirrored risers, tubs of ice. Branded taps for that organic beverage company, jars of herbs for eco-garnishes. Nobody sees the hazard sticker on the tank behind the bar. It's blocked by a wall of glass dispenser jars filled with citrus slices. Ethan walks through this chaos. He checks angles, adjusts centerpieces, tells people where the money shots will be. Online, he's already started pushing the narrative, a groundbreaking collaboration with an organic beverage brand and several green startups, celebrating love and sustainability in a one-of-a-kind urban ecodome. Posts go out teasing the future of green events. Hashtags bloom, hashtag Glassdome love, and hashtag zero waste wedding. The guest list is stacked. There's a local senator whose entire platform is environmental policy, a walking press release in a tailored suit. There's also a representative from the same federal agency that signed off on my grant, a mid-level official who probably thinks he's spending his Saturday networking at a chic sustainability event. By noon, camera crews arrive. Not just one photographer, but a whole content apparatus. Tripods with DSLRs, ring lights, gimbals. One corner of the dome becomes stream central, laptops, switchers, cables, with a kid in a beanie monitoring chat. YouTube, TikTok, even Ethan's own event platform. My dome, my lab, my federally monitored facility, turned into a branded backdrop, live streamed to anyone who cared to click. My main development was never meant to hurt anyone. The microorganisms I engineered are a clean solution. Under normal conditions, they sit quietly in the filtration system, chewing through volatile compounds, scrubbing the air as it cycles through the dome. We tested them exhaustively. Stable temperature, stable pH, predictable byproducts. Safer than the air outside, in some ways. But the same pathway that makes them so efficient has a nasty edge case. Under a sharp swing in pH and temperature, their metabolism jolts. For a brief window, they dump a neuroactive aerosol, short-lived, quickly degradable, but potent while it's there. That's why those operating parameters are hard-locked in the system. That's why there are supposed to be alarms. On the wedding stream, you can see the moment Alara gets her idea. The ceremony is over, the guests are milling around, the band is playing some airy indie song under my crop lamps. Alara pulls the DJ aside, gesturing up toward the roof. And I can read her lips if I slow the footage down, fog under glass. Like a cloud. A few minutes later, two massive smoke machines appear from one of the equipment cases. They roll them right up next to the main air intake grills, the same inlets that are designed to pull in outside air for purification. No one stops them. Why would they? There are no warning signs left. No one in the room understands that those vents are the lungs of a living system. The DJ, eager to please, dives into the control settings. Someone overrides the climate presets to boost the effect. They crank up the output of the smoke machines to drop the ambient temperature fast to make the fog cling and swirl. From my monitoring logs, I know exactly what happened next in the system. The climate control software goes into stress mode. Filters start loading far beyond their usual range as they choke on artificial fog. The microorganisms, suddenly shoved out of their narrow comfort band, flip into their emergency metabolic pathway. They start to exhale. A thick white mist pours across the floor, curls around people's ankles, rises in soft waves. Guests lift their phones, delighted. Someone yells, "This is like being inside a cloud." Then the automated alerts begin to ping in the corner of the monitoring app, unseen and ignored. Temperature fluctuation. Volatile metabolite increase. Service mode, still enabled from the inspection, politely suppresses the escalation. Inside the dome, people start commenting on the air. One bridesmaid fans herself and laughs. Is it just me, or do you guys feel amazing? Another guest describes it later as like the best glass of wine you've ever had, but in your lungs. Shoulders loosen. Conversations get louder. There's a sense of giddy closeness, like everyone suddenly fell in love with everyone else. Then the edges start to fray. On the stream, you can see it happen almost minute by minute. Guests lose their sentences midway through. Someone starts telling a story about their compost bin and just stops, staring at their drink like it's speaking to them. A group near the bar collapses into hysterical laughter over nothing, tears running down their faces, mascara streaked. The chat on Ethan's platform explodes. What is in those cocktails? Why is that guy talking to the fern? The local senator takes the stage to say a few words about sustainable love according to the event schedule. At first, he sticks to his talking points: green jobs, clean air, bipartisan cooperation. Then the aerosol catches up with him. His speech wanders. He squints up at the plant wall like it's heckling him. Trees, he announces, gripping the microphone too tightly, have always been watching us. You know that, right? You think they're quiet, but they're organized. People laugh, assuming it's a joke. But he doubles down. They talk underground, he insists. They're coordinating. Whole route networks. You pave a parking lot, they never forget. It's a tree conspiracy. On TikTok, someone clips that part and adds dancing pine trees over his head. Meanwhile, near the front, a lens catches Alara and Ethan. They're standing slightly apart from the crowd, whispering fiercely. At first I thought they were arguing about the schedule. Then the audio from a nearby camera picks up their words. Look at them, Alara hisses. They're exaggerating everything. They're doing this on purpose. This is a setup. A setup by who? Ethan asks, eyes darting to the cameras. She jerks her chin toward a tripod. Them. This is some twisted reality show. You don't get it? They're trying to make us look crazy. From that point on, they act like they're surrounded by invisible reporters. On the stream, it plays like surreal performance art. They turn to empty air and start defending themselves, voices tight. We are not sellouts, Alara says to a space where no one is standing. This is our values. You can't twist that in editing. Ethan points accusingly at an unoccupied corner. If you cut this to make us look like hypocrites, we will sue. We have lawyers. Guests avoid looking at them, too busy dealing with their own unraveling. One man tries to order a drink from a potted ficus. Another guest carefully interviews a coat rack with her phone held out, nodding seriously at whatever she thinks it's saying. The cameras keep rolling. Comments flood in, half horrified, half entertained. No one in that glass bubble realizes they're walking through the edge conditions of my experiment. I found out what they'd done to my dome while standing in line for airport coffee. Denver International, Sunday afternoon. I was half asleep, wearing the retreat's free hoodie, scrolling mindlessly through emails on airport Wi-Fi when a push notification slid down over my screen from a science news app. One follow. Trending now, America's strangest eco-wedding in a research dome. At first my brain didn't connect the words. Eco-wedding. Research dome. Then there was a thumbnail image. Glass curve, city skyline, interior lit pink and gold. My dome. My air intakes. My lamps. I stepped out of the coffee line so fast the man behind me swore under his breath. I tapped the notification. The article wasn't even a real article yet, more like a compilation of embedded clips and tweets. Someone had written, only in Seattle, couples are now renting research domes for weddings over a video of guests stumbling through fog, laughing too hard, grabbing at each other like they'd just inhaled pure helium. In the background, I saw my equipment. Not in a lab camera feed. In a vertical, shaky phone video with heart emojis floating in the corner. For a second, everything went white around the edges. Then the part of my brain that's been trained for emergencies kicked in. I dropped into a plastic chair near an outlet, opened my monitoring app with shaking fingers, and logged into the dome. The dashboard loaded with a delay that felt like a year. When it finally appeared, every graph screamed. Temperature, oscillating hard. Filter load, in the red. Safety alerts, suppressed, service mode. But the last valid technician logout was Friday evening. After that, access logs I didn't recognize. My facility on a weekend with no authorized experiments scheduled. On another screen, the live stream rolled on. Guests moving strangely in the fog. The senator rambling on a mic, face flushed. My brother in the background, arguing with empty space. I tasted metal in my mouth. The grant handbook has a red tab on my desk back in Seattle. Emergency reporting, incidents, and breaches. I'd never used it. So I dialed with my thumb before I could talk myself out of it. The line picked up on the second ring. Department of Energy Incident Reporting. State your name, affiliation, and facility ID. This is Dr. Aurelia Westbrook, I said. My voice didn't sound like mine. Principal Investigator, Westbrook Environmental Systems Dome Facility, Seattle Waterfront. Facility ID, I rattled it off, the numbers lining up in my head. What is the nature of the incident, Dr. Westbrook? Unauthorized event inside a BSL 2 facility, I said. Active breach of biosafety protocols. Possible exposure to engineered microorganisms with neuroactive aerosol byproduct under out-of-range conditions. There was a pause. Keys clacked in the background. How are you aware of this? Remote monitoring app and live video from the site. I swallowed. I am off-site in Colorado. I did not authorize this use. I am transmitting the stream link and my current dashboard screenshots now. My hands moved before my thoughts did. I copied the link, exported the graphs, sent everything to the secure email address the operator dictated. I attached the strain IDs, almost on autopilot, internal codes, construct numbers. Primary strain involved appears to be WS-17V, I said. Designed for industrial air purification. Under stable conditions, non-pathogenic. Under sudden temperature and pH fluctuation, documented to release short-lived neuroactive aerosol. We never operate near that threshold. Right now the system is fluctuating around it and safety alarms are suppressed in service mode. The operator's tone changed. Stay on the line, doctor. I'm escalating you to CDC field coordination. A series of clicks, a brief silence, and then another voice came on. Aurelia? This is Dr. Qasim Malik, CDC field coordination. Are you safe and are you currently on site? For a second, I forgot how to breathe. Malik. My old research supervisor from grad school. The man who once failed me on a lab safety drill because my sleeve brushed a benchtop. I'm not on site, I managed. I'm at Denver International. I only just saw. It's all right, he said, in the same steady tone. Walk me through it. Slowly. Start with the organism. I gave him everything. He didn't interrupt, just murmured, go on, while, in the background, other voices began to move, phones ringing, doors opening, that low buzz of a room snapping into crisis mode. Current readings? He asked. I read the numbers straight off my screen and described the video. Visible fog, guest behavior, speech disturbances, inappropriate laughter, apparent paranoia. Duration of potential exposure so far? I checked the timestamp on the stream. Approximately 40 minutes since fog machines activated. Maybe more. I don't know when they first altered the settings. And access. Malik's voice sharpened. Who authorized entry? Nobody. My throat closed around the word. I locked down the facility before leaving on Friday. Technicians signed out. The only way in should have been emergency override or security manipulation. The event is my brother's wedding. The word felt wrong in my mouth. Guests include a state senator focused on environmental issues, and I swallowed again. And at least one representative from the granting agency. There was a rustle of paper, then his voice came back, firmer than before. All right. I'm registering this as an incident call from the principal investigator. You are on record as whistleblower and reporting party, not as perpetrator. Do you understand? Yes, I whispered. Level 3 field protocols are being initiated, he said. CDC, EPA, and DHS joint response. We are dispatching teams to your dome now. Local law enforcement will secure the perimeter. You stay where you are unless instructed otherwise. Keep your phone on, battery charged, and do not contact anyone inside the facility directly. On my screen, the stream continued, my glass dome glowing like a lantern, full of people who were starting to look less enchanted and more lost. One woman tried to open a wall panel that wasn't a door. Someone else lay on the floor, laughing helplessly. My family is in there, I said, finally letting it out. I know, Malik replied quietly. And the best thing you can do for them right now is exactly what you're doing. Give us data and stay out of the way. We'll take it from here, Dr. Westbrook. After the teams went in with respirators and sealed suits, the dome went quiet. They ventilated, neutralized, sampled, documented. When they finally declared the site contained, my dome was no longer a lab or a wedding venue. It was a crime scene with my name on every doorframe. The guests were loaded into ambulances and buses, triaged like victims of a strange disaster. Nobody died. That was the sentence they kept repeating, as if it were supposed to make me feel better. Everyone was sent to hospitals for observation, cognitive tests, blood work. They came out with discharge papers full of words like transient neurocognitive effects and environmental exposure of uncertain long-term consequence. Meanwhile, online, they were memes. Clips of their behavior flooded TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. The senator's tree conspiracy rant got auto-tuned. A loop of a bridesmaid interviewing a coat rack was captioned, "Journalism in 2025." Ethan and Alara yelling at invisible reporters became a reaction gif within hours. Every time I opened my phone, there was my dome, cut into 40-second chunks, turned into a joke. The investigation moved in the opposite direction. Federal auditors, agency lawyers, forensics teams. They pulled access logs, camera archives, financial records, email threads. They interviewed my techs, my contractors, the security company, the wedding vendors. I spent 2 full days in a conference room answering questions until my throat hurt. That's where I saw it all laid out, the forged electronic signatures, the contracts signed on behalf of my LLC, the retreat fee and flights charged to my business account, the authorization forms that allegedly came from me. My name flowed across those documents in a smooth digital script that looked almost right, but not quite, like someone copying a signature from memory. Ethan hadn't just lied to me. He'd used my company as his personal ATM and cover brand. Vendor agreements for lighting, decor, live streaming, even portable restrooms all bore the same phrase under client, Westbrook Environmental Systems, Private Urban Eco Center. He'd attached a fake letter on my non-existent, event stationery, saying we were piloting community engagement programming. Every time the investigators showed me another printout, my stomach turned colder. They dug through the city fire inspection, paperwork, and found more fabrication. The inspection order was fake. The logo had been lifted from a public PDF and slapped on a Word template. Greg's authorization for service mode access was months out of date, never renewed. What they called it in the report was deliberate disregard of posted warnings and known hazards, and illegal entry into a BSL-2 facility under false pretenses. Then came the funding decision. The agencies revoked my grant. Officially, it was due to irreparable compromise of the research environment and destruction of federal property. Unofficially, it felt like being disowned. They froze remaining funds, inventoried equipment, tagged entire racks of cultures as contaminated evidence. What could be salvaged was trucked to a secure federal site. What couldn't was destroyed. I watched 5 years of work go into biohazard bags. But the lawsuits didn't land on me. Once they finished combing through my correspondence, my repeated written refusals to host events in the Dome, the strings of emails where I used words like criminal liability and non-negotiable, the agencies changed their angle. I stopped being the negligent scientist in the story and became the person whose warnings were ignored by family members acting without authority. So they went after Ethan and my parents. The Department of Energy and the EPA filed a civil suit naming all 3 as defendants: destruction of federal research property, interference with a secure laboratory facility, document forgery, fraudulent misrepresentation to vendors, knowing violation of biosafety protocols. When the U.S. Attorney's Office joined, the language got darker: conspiracy, wire fraud, endangering public safety. Then the guests organized. At first, it was just angry emails and calls, ruined clothes, ruined reputations. I acted like a lunatic in front of my donors, that kind of thing. Then a law firm put out a press release announcing a class action on behalf of all individuals exposed to an unlicensed biological agent at an event marketed as safe. Medical expenses, ongoing monitoring, therapy, lost work, future risk, every intangible thing had a $sign attached. The senator's lawyers were especially loud. They argued that his bizarre speech had gone viral in a way that would follow him into every election. The federal official who'd been on camera slurring his words and hugging a floral arrangement came in right behind them, his agency mortified to see their representative turned into a joke. All of them, every plaintiff, pointed in the same direction: at Ethan as the organizer who chose the venue, hid the risks, doctored the paperwork. At my parents as the people who facilitated access and benefited from the use of the property by allowing my LLC to be misrepresented. And, thanks to the forged documents, at my family as a little cluster of co-conspirators surrounding a lab they never bothered to understand. The numbers multiplied obscenely. Federal damages for equipment and structural remediation. Emotional distress. At one point, someone summarized it as an 8-figure problem for a middle-class family with no assets except a mortgaged house and a failing event company. They were right. My parents' retirement accounts vanished into legal retainers and early settlements. The house got a lien, then another. Ethan's business hemorrhaged clients the moment his name showed up in federal filings. No brand wanted to be associated with that wedding that turned into a bio-incident. His bank called in his loans. His credit cards froze. And over all of it hung the possibility of criminal charges actually sticking. In every meeting, every call, the phrase came up, prison time. The U.S. Attorney's Office never promised anything, but they didn't rule it out either. I sat through some of those discussions with my hands folded in my lap, feeling like I was floating outside my own life. These were my parents they were talking about. My brother. The people who once came to my science fairs with homemade posters and store-bought cookies. Now they were case numbers. Defendants. Federals closed my dome with yellow tape. Officially, it's decommissioned pending dismantling. In reality, part of the structure has already been taken apart, the glass ribs cut down like a skeleton being disassembled. The city will probably turn the lot into something harmless and marketable, a dog park, a food truck court, a blank space where no one remembers what lived there before. The only thing that keeps me standing is the investigation report with my name on the first page and one word that matters, exonerated. They recorded the timestamp of my emergency call from the airport, my strain codes, my insistence on shutting everything down. But scandal sticks, even when you're innocent. In the professional community, I'm the woman whose lab turned into a viral joke and a federal mobilization. Some people avoid my name. Others invite me to panels about risk communication with a careful curiosity. When a university in the Midwest offered me an associate professor position, I said yes faster than I expected, just a step sideways out of the blast radius. Now I teach undergrads and grad students in low, brick buildings with squeaky doors. My new labs are modest, nothing fancy, just standard benches, basic equipment, and safety systems I triple-check myself. My students joke that I'm paranoid in a cute way because I make them role-play emergency drills and label everything twice. I don't tell them that I'm not being dramatic. I'm trying to make sure none of them ever watch their life's work turned into a meme. Back home, things fell the way gravity says they must. My parents lost their house. Settlements, legal fees, and debts swallowed the equity and then some. They rent a small place now, and our calls are awkward, full of things we don't say out loud. Ethan's event business collapsed in slow motion. Clients disappeared, sponsors backed out, his logo vanished from social feeds. Last I heard, he was working temp jobs and talking to lawyers more than friends. Ilara deleted her accounts after the third wave of memes hit, bride screaming at invisible cameras, audio remixed a dozen ways. As for me, I loaded what was left of my life into an old, rattling car, a box of lab notebooks, my laptop, a few clothes, the retreat hoodie I can't quite bring myself to throw away. I drove east until the air felt different and no one recognized my face. If you've listened this far, I'm guessing you know something about being the responsible one whose warnings nobody takes seriously until it's too late. So I'm going to ask you, have you ever had your boundaries trampled by the very people who were supposed to protect you? How did you survive it? Please write your own story in the comments below. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe. See you in the next video.